Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and this week we are talking about Firbolgs and Goliaths.
Now, you may think to yourself, these don't really have a whole lot of overlap thematically. Why are they talking about both? Well, that's because we don't know if we have 30 minutes of material on Firbolgs.
They both speak giant. They're feasibly giant kin.
They're both big.
They are both big.
That's what we got. Let's talk about Firbolgs first.
Okay, yeah. Oh, jeez, I've forgotten our questions again. G. Fuck, I guess you got me there. What do you like about Firbolgs?
Well, perhaps a little summary for the listener of why we don't think we have much material, why you search for our typical questions.
Sure. I don't think I wrote them down.
I don't think you did either, is the problem. So, as you may notice, if you've listened to a bunch of these podcasts, particularly the races one, our podcasts about D&D races are largely based around how we've used them previously or how we'd like to use them in the future. Where Spork, I believe, mentioned he'd like to play a Firbolg when he has the occasion. He hasn't had the occasion yet, and neither of us have had occasion to use them in our worlds because we're both the kind of DM who typically, unless it's one of the standard races or a race we particularly want to use for something, is content to wait for one of our players to want to play that race before we start really setting stuff up. So, neither of us really have used Firbolgs before as DMs, and neither of us have played them, so we don't have a lot of first-hand experience. I can tell you what I like about Firbolgs conceptually, though.
Go for it.
Having read their fluff and having read their traits, we talked on the Goblinoid podcast about how you could use a bugbear. My brain went, bullywig. No. Bugbear as a sort of a stand-in for a wampa, for like a yeti. A Sasquatch sort of thing. Firbolg is probably what I would use as a stand-in for a Sasquatch. Because it's really easy to turn Firbolgs into a version of an interpretation of Sasquatches, which I really like. As like it's kind of built right into their fluff, you know. They are great big, and they're one with nature, and they speak to the trees and the plants, and they can turn invisible and hide, and hide themselves very easily in nature, and thus they have not been discovered yet. They are a reclusive people who prefer to live separately from the other peoples, and you only ever really see the exiles, the outcasts, and the survivors acting as adventurers. That's their base fluff. That's a really good interpretation of, like, Sasquatch that I like. Not necessarily more than the Goblinoid version, it's just I'm already using them for other stuff.
Sure.
I like that idea of them as the forest people. As an older version of a fantasy setting I made had gnomes occupying this slot. Just because I don't like gnomes' base fluff. But I like the idea of the race where most of them aren't going to be adventurers, and you'll only ever really see the very hard-end outliers as adventurers. I like that concept in general. I overused it in previous settings. I made every race have a kind of that sort of flavor because I wanted adventurers to feel exceptional, but it just sort of syndrome, when everyone's special, no one is, sort of thing.
Sure.
But having it be that race's hat for a couple races, I don't mind at all. What about you, sir? What do you like about Firbolgs?
A lot, actually. It would definitely be easier to say what I don't like, honestly, but
that's next.
Yeah, it sure is. They feel fresh while still feeling traditional. Firbolg is a playable race I'm sure has existed previously. But, like, I remember when Volo's Guide came out and everyone kind of went, oh, Firbolgs, okay. If you're a World of Warcraft player, you know them as exactly the race you read in the book, except they're bears and not, fairy tale troll looking people. They've been around in Dungeons and Dragons for quite a long time, but I don't remember the last time they were a playable race, and I certainly don't think they've ever been a common playable race. So they do have that freshness to them. And I feel like they occupy a niche, kind of like you said, that isn't a thing. Like, forest gnomes are woodsy people that talk to burrowing animals, and, you can play David the Gnome. But I like the idea of just, like, these quiet, almost delicate giants.
At peace.
Yeah.
Very powerful, very large, but not brutish, not aggressive. Gentle giants.
Yeah, and overall, their size aside, I appreciate that there is a race in Dungeons and Dragons whose mindset is, a custodian, a caretaker, a gentle person, a hidden person, someone who is doing their best job when you never see them do it. Gnomes are overly gregarious, and halflings are, well, it depends on which way you take the fluff, but the traditional hobbit doesn't want to adventure. They're just, Jeff from around the block. And the other kind of halflings are crazy nomads. The elves live in the forests, but they're haughty and arrogant.
Yeah, they're reclusive because they're snooty dickheads.
Yeah.
Firbolgs are reclusive because they just genuinely don't have the urge to go make a big splash in the world. They're content being the custodian of their patch. They're content just making sure the forest is protected. They're a fabulous race to use for a druid.
Sure. And they're nice. There's not that many D&D races you read their lore and you go, they sound nice.
Yeah, they sound like pretty cool dudes.
Yeah. Their powers are neat. To bridge into the next section, which is what do you hate about them? And hate's a strong word. I don't really care for their shape-shifting thing.
I like it as a addition to their ability to turn invisible. It's to make themselves easier to hide.
Sure. It's got a lot of very traditional Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy stink to it, if you will. Like how were creatures in older versions of Dungeons and Dragons actively hide among others in their human forms. Like, that's the point of their human form. How dragons, in a lot of fantasy fiction,
will turn into people and just sort of hang out.
Yeah. For different reasons, obviously, with the Firbolg. They're like, I'd rather you not know that I'm a Firbolg. Let's not complicate our relationship with who I
can
am.
Just be Hillbilly Jim.
Yeah, this is fine. I know that's easier on you, and I'm okay with that.
Like, that combined with this guy's self... I would actually... This is a race that I would actually make pretty severe changes to how they look. I would literally just make them look like Sasquatch because their disguised self can also change their appearance. So their natural form is literally just Bigfoot. They're just Bigfoot.
I mean, you harry up a Firbolg and you got a Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's pretty much the idea. Because that's actually the thing that prevented me from even bothering to read their fluff for the longest time, is visually, I just don't like them.
It grows on me. Like, at first glance, I went, but, like, the more I read about their personality, I get the visual. It's very Jim Henson Muppet, like the bigger Muppets. It's got that energy.
It's got Snuffleupagus energy.
It's Snuffleupagus or the big things from the Fraggles or...
yes. Oh, yeah. Strong big things from the Fraggles. I also don't remember their name.
I can't off the top of my head. I just watched a whole documentary series on them last year, but it's got that Jim Henson, I'm big and weird, but I could be nice vibe to it.
Very where the wild things are.
Yeah, sure. I like it. I don't... It's nothing I would have come up with, but I can work with it. And I've seen people work with it.
I would just make them Bigfoot. That's the thing I don't like about them, is I just don't like that visual for that race.
I mean, that's fine. I've seen people color outside the lines a little bit and make some different changes and keep the spirit and still have some interesting looking character concepts for a Firbolg.
So neither of us really use them in our worlds.
Well, and there's a reason for that. They're reclusive.
Yeah. So, and you only ever see the exiles, the survivors, and the outcasts as adventurers. So there's really no need to put them in there until one of them is a player character. Until then, you just haven't met any. You know why? They don't like meeting people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have as many pet races as I used to that I actively employ. Like, as much as I salivate over gnolls, when's the last time y'all ran into a gnoll in one of my games?
I don't think I have in 4 years.
I play with dark elves a lot because I feel like they can...
There's a lot of material there.
Yeah, and I use a couple of different kinds of dark elves, so I can create a rich tapestry of these are a people through them, and I like the opportunities it affords. In addition to thinking that dark-colored elves are cool.
Because that is part of it. Like, David S. Pumpkin style, that is part of it.
Yeah, somebody hit the invert switch on him, and I think that's nifty. But I just, like, I would love to have someone have an adventure and be like, okay, let's do Firbolgs through there.
I would, if I ever played a druid, that'd be near the top of the list.
Yeah.
Just because they might not work stats-wise, but thematically they work so well that it's worth.
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember what their stat bonuses are.
Check real quick here. Is that all that there is to how you would play the character?
I mean, like, why try and fix a working watch? I would just play a Firbolg who happens to be slightly better at the nature magic than some of his friends. Mm. Instead of turning into a person, sometimes he will turn into a squirrel.
Sure, why not? I'm not as fond of that power set, but...
I mean, I haven't played a druid either, and there's a reason for that. But if I decided I wanted to, it'd be near the top of the list. Just because it fits so damn well.
Yeah. I would probably have some kind of connection to nature if I were playing one. And honestly, out of all of the characters I kind of play off-brand, both from not having played one and from just finding them very interesting, I'd just play a Firbolg as a Firbolg.
Same.
I don't have to get...
There is definitely space for doing the opposite. They even put that in there.
Yeah.
Their evil Firbolgs are rare, and they're usually the sworn enemies of the rest of their kind. The version of Sasquatch I'm specifically thinking about, it's the Dresden Files one, to the surprise of no one, that I would use as inspiration for Firbolgs, has a version of that, the evil Sasquatch who is the enemies of the rest of their kind, in the most recently published book. And yeah, he's fucking scary.
Cool.
And that I could do that too, but like
there's rife ground there.
Maybe a giant soul sorcerer for that one.
Oh, that'd be pretty sick. To do a Disney princess as well. You, Firbolg, secluded to the forest, always dreaming of the people, and more. You have your "I Want" song, and you put on your fancy dress, and
that don't tempt me to do that to do an "I Want" song in character. You won't like where that road ends. I'm not a good singer. But I don't really have much more to say about Firbolgs.
No, and let's just go ahead. We're about the 12, 13-minute mark, not including preamble. So, yeah, that's why we kind of wanted to lump them in with Goliaths. Because while we have more experience with Goliaths, I'm not sure we've got more to say about them.
No, and so they fit together as like a little twofer for you.
Yeah. I think it's partially because a lot of the errata races are not... I just did like a... What was that character's name? Schnitzel? Rada. Anyway, a lot of the additional races in Dungeons & Dragons are less well-trod. Period. Whereas the core book races, because of the ones they've assembled... We've done those a lot. We've experienced those a lot. And by the time we started doing this podcast, even tieflings, which were the outlier.
A lot.
Yeah. Dragonborn still not too much, but...
I don't think anyone's played a Dragonborn yet. I use them pretty heavily.
Yes.
Oh, no, yeah. JP. I forgot about him for a moment.
And I played one a long time ago, but that was 4th edition. It was a different world. Minions existed. So let's move into Goliaths here. Do we address the elephant in the room now or later?
I think now's a good time.
Okay, so, I'm not a huge fan, but I did watch about half the first series of Critical Role. There's a reason people give a shit about Goliaths now, and his name is Travis Willingham.
I I have never watched more than 20 minutes of an episode of Critical Role in my entire life for reasons I cannot reasons I've never been able to figure out. I can't listen to other people play D&D. It causes me to cringe out of my own skin, and I have to turn it off. I can't explain why. It doesn't matter who's doing it. I've tried every popular D&D podcast. If you're thinking, I should recommend this one to him, don't. I've listened to it, and I can't.
Wrong, you should. Put it in the comments below. Like, subscribe. Hit us up on Patreon. For $5 a month, you get access to all kinds of crazy shit and my eternal gratitude.
One of you guys pays us $5 a month. I will listen to whichever podcast you recommend. I will just listen to it. I will just become a listener of that podcast.
There you go, Rob. Put a podcast you like in the comments, other than us, obviously. And
yeah, there you go. So I'll bring it up a lot on the podcast. So here's the thing, right? Even I do a Travis Willingham impression for my Goliaths because cultural osmosis has made that their voice.
So yeah,
he is the absolute, he is the archetype maker for that race now.
Mm-hmm. I would agree, and he definitely, and the whole campaign. I mean, Mercer is not disconnected from this, but it brought Goliaths to the forefront in a way they hadn't been before. They were in one of the earlier players' handbooks for 4th edition.
They were.
So I kind of remember them, and I kind of remember thinking, that's neat. But there were so many options in 4th edition, and it just never... we didn't play as much 4th edition as we do 5th. Now, it took us a long time to start.
Yeah.
But it just never really happened. But now, especially as a DM... we mentioned this on the Goblinoid podcast.
They just stole the conceptual space I used to use for orcs.
They took up a lot of real estate in it. And it's done a wonderful thing where now we've got this new race that is the Goliath. New, relatively speaking.
Compared to orcs, certainly.
Yeah, that people can interact with and be interested in and have fun with. And it, by making orcs less commonplace... makes them feel more special too.
Yeah, it's actually a case of someone coming in and biting your shtick, making it being good for both of you. Like, they took a lot of the space that I was using orcs for as the, honorable, proud warrior race that has, lawful bent to it, which allowed me to use orcs, allowed me to explore a different concept for orcs, which is very nice.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Goliaths really fit in that genre. They really fit in that niche. They are big boy dwarfs. They are...
I like that they herd. I like that they're nomadic. They've got kind of like a very Ferelden Steppes people sort of thing going for them.
Yeah, the Chastened, I believe those were called.
Sure, yeah, exactly them. I like it. It's unique in that they're, not very colorful, and they're... it's cool. I like it a whole bunch.
I like them visually a lot. I like the very geometric patterns that it suggests for their skin, and I like the the stony skin for them. It just looks cool, and it makes a character very visually interesting without a lot of work and without being garish looking. I can make a Goliath NPC and describe them in a very interesting way without them being the weird flamingo man who's walking through town now.
Well, no, I want to play a flamingo man. Thanks, asshole.
Eric Cockrat's right there.
Can flamingos fly?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I just really enjoy shellfish and big, long leggy.
I guess, yeah.
Be a monk, do kicks.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I also there was one other thing I wanted to specifically mention. Oh, I really like them mechanically.
Yeah.
They are a very well-designed race. Mm-hmm. They have a very useful racial feature. They have all of their shit fits together. They don't have stone cunning. They don't have the one weird thing which never gets used.
Well, they do. But I think it comes up more, and it's neater. The fact that they're acclimated to high altitudes and cold climates.
I guess that just comes up more than stone cutting, to be honest.
It basically does.
It's just a very well-designed race, and I really love their central racial feature. It works not just to add on hat-on-a-hat style to a barbarian or a fighter, make them tougher, but if you wanted to play a Goliath of like one of the shittier hit dice having classes, like say maybe a Giant Soul Sorcerer or Goliath. I know I keep mentioning that, but big races work with Giant Soul Sorcerer really well. Say you wanted to do that, it allows you to have a little bit more tankiness to reflect on the fact that you're a great big motherfucker made out of rocks.
Not literally made out of rocks, but, just for the sake of the listener at home, I can be a rock man. Not quite.
You can be a rockish man. And you can be an earth genasi. You can be a rock man.
Yeah.
But what do you we both sort of praised them a lot just now. What do you not like? What grinds your gears about the Goliath, if anything?
No, nothing really. They lend themselves toward a specific, character race or class rather. You got a +2 to strength, and that's
and a
only
+1 to con. So
+1 to con's nice, but a +2 to strength is only so useful in 5th edition.
Strength is not. It is not the dump stat. That's int. It is.
It depends on your build. Your dump stat's either strength or int. If you're going for pure mechanics.
Yeah. But it is a dump stat.
Yeah. But that's like. You guys have been listening to this podcast presumably for a while now. When do I complain about
Yeah, that's a pretty small.
Yeah.
That says you like them a lot. That you have. That's the best you can come up with.
I don't know that I'd want to play a Goliath necessarily. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't play a Goliath, but they're not like high up on my.
So this is like me. Typically, this one's more useful for you as a DM.
I've gotten a lot of use out of them as a DM. The current setting I'm working in. That would have been a lot closer to being over by now. Has 2 very rich places that Goliaths come from. You've got a slightly more civilized version of the default fluff of them being nomads from rocky places,
up in the high ups where it's cold.
Mm-hmm. And then there's I've got an offshoot that's
He decided to make them Zandalari trolls.
Yeah, that's the short version. It worked.
I was baffled. It was great. I really wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, I ran this whole storyline that started out like...
One of our NPC allies is a Goliath. And
I realized something. We've both done Goliath NPC allies who refuse to wear armor. And
they feel very different.
They feel very different, yeah. Completely different guys. I can't ever imagine Tor drinking kombucha and getting blitzed out of his mind.
Then I've done a bad job getting Tor across.
If it was like whiskey or something, sure.
He seems classier than I intended.
It's not classy. It's just keep your hippie frilly shit away from me kind of thing.
Actually, that's kind of fair. But one of our NPC allies is a Goliath. Who is dumb as a box of hammers, but a good fighter man who is best friends with one of the player characters. He gets a letter from his long-lost relative who is a prince who desperately needs our help. And then this motherfucker makes him actually the prince's long-lost relative. He gives us a Nigerian prince scam to go answer. And then he's literally the relative of a Nigerian prince. I was genuinely not expecting it to be real.
I loved how the entire party went along with it, but in that exact vein of, okay, sure, let's see what happens.
It was literally, was it, I know you're not a huge fan of the character, but in the movie, The Frozen, I believe it doesn't have the, but I'm not entirely sure. Very small and popular movie. There is a character named Olaf, who is a snowman who was brought to life by terrible, terrible eldritch god. And he didn't understand the concept of snow melting when it's warm. So he really wanted to go live where it was nice and warm in summer and hang out on the beach. And he's an annoying shit, so one of the characters goes, I'm gonna tell him. And then the other one goes, don't you dare! That was the energy. That was the energy. That was everyone in the party, except for, I believe, the ranger looking at the ranger and going, don't you dare!
Yeah. Let him have this. Let's see how this plays out.
I had a fun little in-character rant as my very merchant and profit-focused sorcerer of, yes, of course, let's go to see your very real, definitely existent royal relatives. Super real he is, definitely. And it turns out he was.
That's the fun part about playing Davos, is that I can just kind of roll with that. Let's go see your super very real relatives. Okay. Thank you for going with me on this quest.
They are indeed very real.
Yes, I agree with you.
And because he is so damn stupid, and also kind of seems to be a little aware of it and is totally willing to play it up.
He's not non-intelligent. He is baseline intelligent. But he's not. It's the critical thinking. It's
the low ass wisdom score.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. He's very fun character, and you have done a lot of good work with a Goliath and with the Goliath race as a DM. I feel like I've used them a lot more sparingly as a race. I use them as a standout NPC creator.
Yes.
It is the law of conservation of detail. If I describe an NPC just sort of generally, you might not care about them. If I describe them and then add they're a Goliath, you will instantly care more. It is a great way to mark an NPC out as important without putting a big glowing exclamation mark over their head. I haven't done much work with them as a race because it just hasn't come up.
No, well, we haven't really been in the kind of area where a Goliath would show up.
Yeah,
and if I'm being honest, the only reason Davos is a Goliath is because of the visual.
Yes, for anyone not in on this joke, Davos is Drax the Destroyer from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, played by Dave Bautista.
Because I needed a character that I was not expecting to need, and I pulled a Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, he accidentally gave the chicken a New Jersey accent. And...
But it's let me do so many things, like the not wearing armor because of his sensitive nipples, and then the whole party is like, well, you got a terrible AC, buddy. We got to get you something.
We literally dropped one of our most, a very powerful ring of mage armor on this NPC so that he'd have a decent AC. Because he just wouldn't wear a shirt.
He's become the party mascot in a good way. But that's the thing I like about Goliaths, is what you were saying, their utility is you can mark them as an interesting race, but it doesn't make them the focus, because Goliaths are so mundane by their very nature that it's a Goliath.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting. I want to at least talk to this guy for 2 more sentences now.
Yeah, I mean, not to the extent of, this person's clearly an Aasimar. Oh, okay, so this is like what, some sort of big NPC?
This is like Jesus. We got a Jesus here. Okay, we got a Messiah alert. Everybody get your bad time hats on.
Not that any of your players are quite that cynical, but for you out there, I don't know what games y'all are running.
Goliath is a much more measured version of that.
Yeah. The how you would play this is the only thing we haven't covered with Goliaths. What is there not to like about them? Nothing. They're fine. Give your Goliath a kiss.
One small smooch as a treat. I don't really have any huge ideas. I know exactly how I'd play a Goliath. A fighter or a barbarian.
Sure. I think you could play a cool Goliath ranger. Go Beastmaster and get some kind of mountain goat or something. That'd be pretty sick.
That would be pretty sick.
Yeah.
I was sitting here going, why would I do that when the others are so much? Oh no, that's pretty sick.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it's who again. Why are you trying to fix a working watch?
No, yeah, sure. I mean, there's options. Sometimes when I want to
play a Goliath wizard, I'll put it like that.
God, I might, but that's a bit far out for me. I like to hit a middle ground of what's adjacent to what you expect, you know? Because sometimes you look at a character and you want to build a character and you're like, okay, I want to play this. And it's not that I want to play against type. I just don't want to have taken this out of the box as is and presented it and gone, here's my entirely predictable character. Guess where my stats are.
You don't want to make the joke name I always use, Durkon Oakenshield.
I don't want to make everyone
the dwarf cleric of Thor or Moradin or whatever. You don't want to make every other Goliath that has ever existed since the beginning of time.
And we don't need to, I don't need to be playing, weird Goliath Warlock or some shit. But...
Blade Pact. Blade Pact, Spell Blade, what do they call those? Hexblade?
Yeah.
You can do that.
I mean, you could do a bunch of things with a bunch of different races,
So basically, so long as they're, I wouldn't want to play a Goliath, I think I've pinned it down. I wouldn't want to play any Goliath that wasn't a melee fighter. I wouldn't want to play a ranged Goliath.
I have no problem playing a ranged Goliath, because then strength is my dump stat, and my strength is only ever going to be so bad.
Yeah, that's the other way to do it, is to use that to shore up your shitty dump stat.
But it depends on what my rolls are, because obviously I've got to make up for that with,
something else,
an 18 or a 17 or something.
But yeah, no, it's... It doesn't... There are big, burly races who I would like to play against type and play like a wizard or something. For whatever reason, Goliath is not there. I do not want to play... I don't want to play the Eldritch Blast Warlock-focused Goliath.
Well, and I think also it comes down to, as I said before, with Firbolg, these aren't well-trodden ground for us.
So I kind of want to get the archetype out of the way before I start fucking painting outside the lines.
I have been so intimately attached to Davos that I have played a champion fighter Goliath. I have not rolled for his attacks or specifically made his decisions, but I've played the character as an actor.
You haven't made his in-combat decisions.
Yes, I've made his other decisions. I've done this. This is the weirdest non-DM PC I have ever been party to.
He is one of the biggest DPSs in the party.
Oh my god, he's ridiculous. But
his full attack is hilarious.
Yeah. And I'm only coloring a little bit outside the lines with his.
You are basically giving him one free feat.
Essentially.
That he is a fighter, he definitely could have that feat somewhere.
Last level, I believe we grabbed him something random just because.
Tough.
Yeah, tough. We threw tough on him just because it was like, fucking why not?
So, you could have already had this. Yeah. He could definitely have already had this ridiculous 15th level fighter Nova already.
He's a powerful little guy. But, that's Goliaths and Firbolgs. That's not one of our zanier podcasts, but if you want some weird shit, go back to last week. There was Washing Up.
I'll never know. I'll never know what happened. I think we're done here, yeah?
We are perpetually done here.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Fuck it!